Let's start with the first hour. And first of all, let's back up, though. For people who haven't been following this, who aren't media, junkies like we are, why did NBC bring on Sarah Palin?
Who are these people who aren't following this? This is so important. Okay.
Right.
Well, here's a little recap of the morning show wars. Today has been on top for years. Good Morning America is trying to shake that dominance. They brought in Katie Couric this week to be a guest host. They hope to finally catch up, or at least win 1 week or 1 day, or do something to shake things up. And so NBC is countered with Sarah Palin, trying to get some more hype going, trying to get some more attention. And now we'll see how that worked out.
And Sarah Palin just there for today, and she basically had an interview with Matt Lauer at the 7 a.m. hour. Let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, that was much more of a news interview with Matt. How did you feel that went?
Yeah, of course, it was a news interview to start off. She did break some political news in terms of her reluctance to come out and say that Mitt Romney, that she was happy about Mitt Romney as a candidate.
Right.
That was interesting. She also laid out a possible game plan for the Republicans who want to unseat Obama in the next election, to basically say, what recovery? Maybe there's some good numbers, but those numbers haven't filtered down to ordinary Americans.
Right.
So that's the argument that she's going to make. We've got to focus on gas prices and other kinds of things. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out in the election. But that was the political news that she broke during her interview with Matt Lauer to kick things off.
And almost flinching, and we're going to bring in Neil King in just a moment. He's in Washington, D.C., analyzing the political side of this for us. But she almost flinched when he first said, it looks like Romney's going to be the nominee, all this kind of. So
she actually made that exact sound, which was interesting. Right. But very quickly, her whole visit turned away from the political to other things, the sort of softer focus.
Right.
Sarah Palin, they tried to give her things that were in her wheelhouse, talking about raising teenage daughters.
Yeah.
They gave her an opportunity to sort of respond to the whole movie Game Change, which was the docudrama on HBO about with Julianne Moore, and she gave a thumbs down to Julianne Moore. But what was interesting, she said she hadn't watched it, so it's sort of interesting she could give a thumbs down to a performance that she hadn't seen yet. But of course, that's Sarah Palin's style. She's someone who's going to take a swing at you if you take a swing at her.
Tina Fey, though, who's obviously played her in the past on Saturday Night Live, she seems to have been a little softer, a little easier on this Tina Fey character.
Well, two interesting things. She said, walking to 30 Rock, Sarah Palin, she said that someone mistook her for Tina Fey. So that's sort of interesting.
Sounds like a line, though, right? She had that prepared.
And then during the show, she said that she actually thought that Tina Fey's portrayal of her was pretty funny.
She thought it was pretty funny.
That's what she said. But, of course, she's kind of co-opted that performance a little bit by going on Saturday Night Live and defanging it a little bit. Because once you're present and at the show when they're making fun of you, it somehow doesn't have quite the teeth that it had before. Of course, it's a funny portrayal, but it's not one that really is career-wrecking for her.
Were you flipping back and forth between Good Morning America and Today to see what Katie and George Stephanopoulos were doing by comparison?
I was not. I was just watching the Today Show,
and
I'm sure that's what Good Morning America, that's their worst nightmare. People were just watching the Today Show to see what Sarah Palin had to say. She was actually only used sparingly in the first hour. But, I watched all the other segments, too.
And again, before we bring in Neil, they sort of had, how did you feel her dynamic was with Matt Lauer? They were billing Sarah Palin as a Fox News, was it a
Fox News contributor?
And Fox News, obviously owned by our parent company, News Corp, in the same building here. How did you feel her dynamic was with Matt Lauer? Because she really did take some shots at basically Matt Lauer and all of what she calls the lamestream media. She was basically taking shots. And how did you feel he responded to that?
Well, several times he did mention the lamestream media. Matt Lauer, you could tell that kind of, rubbed him the wrong way.
Yeah.
He mentioned a couple times himself that now she's sort of part of the mainstream media by being on the show, and at the end he sort of said, how did it feel to be part of the mainstream media for these hours? And she kind of laughed that off. But obviously there's a little bit of tension there because she's someone who's run against the media so many times, and here she is in this sort of one of the ultimate media showcases, the Today Show.
And bottom line for you, before we bring in Neil, Chris, good idea or bad idea for NBC to bring in Sarah Palin, give her their precious airtime on their morning show, to call them the lamestream media? Well,
it depends on what they're looking for. If they're looking to court liberal viewers, obviously not such a good idea. If they just want to pump their numbers up and make sure that GMA does not pass them, we'll have to wait and see how the numbers turn out and see whether or not this idea is panned out.